All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. So excited today to have our guest. His name is Chaz Horn, and he is I guess you're the owner and the founder of Mastery of B2B Sales. And Chaz is someone I just got introduced to, and I will say he stood out among a huge amount of direct messages I get on LinkedIn. A lot of different people are contacting me on a regular basis, and Chaz stood out. And so we got to talking, we had a conversation, and I said, you got to come on and just talk to the 401k community because there's so many things that you understand well and communicate well. And the message that you caught me on was all about direct messaging. So Chaz, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Welcome. Boom. Fist bump.
Yeah.
Socially acceptable fist bump, right?
That's right.
Yeah. On Zoom.
We are living on this Zoom thing and nonstop, and we're pretty good at it now. I know it's interesting when I come across someone that's not familiar with Zoom. I just think, what have you done all year? How would you avoid it?
Exactly. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. And the cool thing about LinkedIn is we get so rigid and we're thinking about ourselves, and because we lack information and there's ignorance, and I'm not trying to be demeaning to anyone out there, people just don't know. And so they reach out to people based on them, not the people they're reaching out to. And because of that, messages fall flat. And your industry is probably one of the industries that struggles the most. Let me phrase it that way. I see more spam from your industry than I do anything else. And so what you do, there's a need. And we talked about Aaron, who's my client, has a similar background. And the content, because you said message, the content that I talked about was using emotional intelligence within direct messaging. Mm-hmm. And then you connected with me. And then I said, oh, a lot of times people will connect with me based on my content. And you said, yeah, it was about X, Y, and Z. So right then and there, you've probably seen my content before, maybe not. But right there, I'm already set up as an authority in your eyes because you reached out to me because of my content. And I was being real and giving value to people based on psychology, emotional intelligence, motivators, experience, and background. And that's what it's about.
Right. And I think what's interesting is it was you that to me, that's what stood out the most. I'm constantly, and I love to respond to these direct messages that I get all day long. And I try to do my best just to quickly, hey, good to meet you. And I just want to see if it's a robot, if it's a system, if it's actually a person. And it's amazing the low percentage of actual people that respond to those that are going to interact with me. But you came at me after I saw your content, I connected with you, and you responded to me, which was fascinating. And I think a real opportunity for advisors to kind of take that approach. And it's not something that has to get through compliance. Like, it was a direct message. And I think that's something that we could probably get through and teach people to do better. But tell me more. Yeah. Tell me more your background. How did you end up doing this? I mean, you've been in sales for years. Yeah. I in a few different places. You've never been in the 401k industry, as far as I know.
Right.
So this is all completely different, but I think there's a lot of overlap in what you've done, and B2B sales is what we live in. So tell me a little more how you got here and what was the story.
Sure. Yeah, right. Definitely. People are people, by the way. Yes, we deal with businesses, and your people are on LinkedIn. And so it's just psychology and emotional intelligence. So my background, I got into my first B2B sales job. I was homeless, living in my car, and I was in Northern California, and I was too ashamed to even tell my family what kind of condition I was living in. So I got my first B2B sales job. Ken Upton, my boss, soon to be mentor, it was 100% commission. I was 119 out of 119 salespeople. I was last. I had zero, zilch, nada sales.
Oh, man.
So 100% commission. I was living in my car. I was literally stealing Fig Newtons out of convenience stores to eat. By the way, I don't recommend eating Fig Newtons, a whole package of them on an empty stomach. That sugar will just like mess you up.
Not a good idea.
Ken had me over for dinner one night. He didn't know my situation. And after we had dinner, he took me into the den, kind of like a master would his student. Sit down. There's a fire in the fireplace. And he had his little lamp on between us. And he said, Chaz, he goes, are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? I'm like, what? I know you're not making any sales. Are you sick and tired of not making any money? I'm like, yes, I am. And he said these words. These 3 words changed my life. You can be, okay? Now, because of the way I grew up in real critical environment, never thought I had any potential. Wow, someone's telling me I can be. Now, he followed that with you can be the number 1 salesperson in the company. And this will segue into our conversation because it's very important. But you got to follow the system. You got to follow the process. So I'm thinking system and process, right?
Right.
And so quit doing it your way. And we do based on fear, based on our comfort zone, do the same thing over and over and over and over again, expecting different results. We all know what that is, right?
We go back to our old habits all the time. It's
That's
it's comfortable.
insanity.
Yep.
That's right. So I'm like, okay, they have a proven system. They have a proven process. So I started plugging into it. Long story short, by the end of the month, I wasn't the number 1 salesperson, but I was number 3. I moved out of a place with my automatic windows, right? So that drilled into me. That was like many years ago, over 25 years ago, system and process. And so I always have thought about that because of Ken, my mentor back then. And so when things aren't working, I start looking into, okay, what's the system? What's the process? What's the strategy? And I came up with an acronym, TABS, 4 things, TABS. Okay. If you aren't getting sales, if you're not getting qualified meetings, it's going to be because of 1 or more of these 4 areas. Okay. T is technique. Technique's not about manipulating. It's about being the true professional and guiding and directing the conversation. This is what happens in most people. Here's the prospective client and here's the salesperson, and we're all in sales, right? If we're looking to bring new clients into our business. So it's always like, oh, thank you so much for meeting with me. And we put ourselves in a subservient position and we allow them to guide and direct the process. We are equals, but we are not authoritarian, but we are the authority. And it's our job to guide and direct the process within the right strategy. If you allow them to guide and direct the process, it'll end up a mess for you and for them. Can you relate to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely made that mistake before.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. Attitude is about its mindset, but tabs, it's about keeping tabs on why you're successful or not. Wouldn't fit into my acronym as tabs. So it's attitude /A/M. So attitude, our mindset. If we don't have the right mindset, we're not going to execute. And if we don't execute, we're not going to get clarity. So then the behaviors, a lot of times we think of behaviors from old school people, cold calls. You have to do so many cold calls. Well, that's an antiquated method that's inefficient and ineffective today. Some businesses still do it. They still get results. People still say cold calling is not dead. I'm not from that camp. Okay.
You haven't got a car warranty lately? That's kind of seems where I get those phone calls nonstop.
Yeah, right? I get tons and tons of these. There's no relationship. And this is why LinkedIn is so powerful. And this is where we go into S, which is strategy. So LinkedIn is the strategy that we use. We use an outbound and an inbound method based on emotional intelligence and psychology. So you reach people based on their motivators, their behaviors, their experiences, their background, as I said earlier. And so the strategy is to, instead of cold calls, you're building an ever increasing community of people who know, like, trust, and see you as an authority. You know, these know, like, and trust have been around ever, you know, from Dale Carnegie, he talks about those, but the authority is the key. And you can repel people or you can attract people. And this is what people don't get. They connect and they spam people, and right away they're repelling them from the get-go. So if you have content, they see you at other, they don't even want to follow you. And so you're doing the opposite of what you should do. Do you have kids, Jake?
I have 5 kids. Yes.
Okay. Wow. Woo-hoo, man. Okay. We could have a podcast episode just on that alone,
we
right?
should. Yeah. But like trying to schedule that is not easy.
What are the ages?
14 down to 5.
Wow. That's awesome, man. My brother has 6 kids. So do your kids watch SpongeBob?
They have in the past. Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't say recently.
Are you familiar with the episodes in SpongeBob called Opposite Day?
A little bit.
Okay. There's also is a Seinfeld out there about an opposite day Seinfeld. Okay. So what people need to know is they need to do the opposite of what they normally would do. There's a survey. It's something like 90+% of people are doing direct messages incorrectly, and you're repelling people. And you do that from the get-go, you're doing all this effort. You have these templated messages, you're using automation, whatever the things that people are doing, you're not responding, and you're going with the wrong intention.
Right.
So the strategy is to serve. Here's our sales process. Here's our marketing strategy. It all starts with intention. If you don't have the intention to serve, not sell, serve. And think about this. If your clients, prospective clients, don't have a 401k in place, just think about what's going to happen at the end of their life or when they start to, retire and whatnot. I mean, there's some major consequences.
Yeah.
And so you have a good reason to want to go with the intention to serve them. So when you connect, think about in serving them, it changes, and this goes to technique, it changes not only what we say, but most importantly, how we say it.
What would you say the biggest mistake that leads people down that path? I mean, is it lack of patience? What is it that causes them to go about direct messaging all wrong?
Yeah, lack of patience is a big one. This is an interesting, ignorance is another one, lack of skill set, all those things kind of together. When people reach out, this is it's kind of a interesting. We think if we do something, we go to A to Z quickest if we just go bam and try to sell them. But
Right.
it causes the opposite of what we're intending to do. So if you play the long game, building the relationship, and I tell my clients this all the time, you're actually going to have more qualified meetings sooner than you expected. So patience, lack of skill set, and ignorance. Those are big. And it goes to that intention, Jake. People are like, I'm going to commit and here, you can do, this long message. People are so tired and sick of that. And you want to know something interesting?
Yeah.
So LinkedIn has a new CEO as of May. They have spam filters in there. So if you have automation, LinkedIn is doing something very interesting. They'll take one message and then your automated second message will go into a different, so they don't see the first one when they get the second one. And so that automation is even less effective nowadays. It was less effective even before that because people are sick and tired of being automated messages. You mentioned earlier, you said people don't respond to messages when people respond to you. That's another big mistake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
the
huge.
first goal is engagement.
Right. And if I'm going to engage with you, because I see it coming every time someone wants to hit me up and connect with me, and they have a message saying, "Oh, I just came across you," or "I like to network with people like you," and or my favorite is when they say they notice something unique, or something stood out in my profile that caught their eye, and I always respond and say, "What was it?" Because I want that feedback. If it really was something they actually looked at, or is this a most likely 99% of the time it's not. They didn't really look at my profile, but they have a system that automatically sends that message. So it's just fascinating that people are going to that shortcut and missing what's happening with social media. Social media is not a place to sell. I'm constantly trying to teach everyone in our forum club and anyone I meet. Social media is not about that. Social media is where our attention is right now, whether you like it or not. That's where the world is spending their time. And in the business and especially the B2B world, LinkedIn is where we're all kind of just getting a chance to interact with each other. And some
Most
more
definitely.
so
91% of business execs go to LinkedIn before Fast Company, Forbes, and Inc. To the feed, 91% of business executives, and that would be a lot of the people that you guys would talk to, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So, and LinkedIn is growing faster than some of the other platforms now as far as new members coming on. There's so much opportunity there. And you need to build a skill set. It doesn't have to be with me. It has to be someone. Now, I spent over 14,000 hours. I'm a former spammer, you know. I had someone 7 years ago was like, well, do this and do this. And within the group, send out 300 messages. I had someone sending out 300 messages, and it was working 7 years ago, but I just didn't feel right about it. So because of that, over 14,000 hours, I've changed and I've learned through massive failure, through messages. And if someone's done something wrong, I've done it probably more times over on LinkedIn. But, and this is a key, when something happens or someone reacts or responds, this is so important for everyone out there. The first objective is to get them to engage with you. Whether it's negative or positive, if they engage with you, you have a conversation started. So, and this is where other people get it wrong. If you don't go with the intention to serve, someone says something to you and you get pissed off about it and you react, you just blew that relationship that's ever going to happen, potentially as a prospect or networker or collaborating on LinkedIn. So if someone, I've scheduled so many meetings after someone reacted, and I'll put a video message, because you could use the app to send a video or a voice message, and say, you know what? I looked at that again and I can see why you think that. You throw yourself under the bus. That's a technique from a place of being authentic and transparent. And people are like, oh, and you can start a conversation and then move that along. I can't tell you how many people, Jake, I've talked to after they've reacted or said something negative, or it could have been taken negative. Sometimes we react because we're so fixated on someone saying something to us in social media. We fixate on the negative, and it's only like 5% of people on LinkedIn are negative, unless you're like a super duper spammer, and 95% of the messages are pretty positive.
Right. Yeah. It's usually a good conversation if you can get people to engage, whatever the topic might be. And one of my, probably the top posts that I ever had it wasn't even a big deal. I just saw some metrics around how the most 401ks are sold by payroll companies. And the level of engagement was off the charts because it was kind of in that outside of the mainstream, what's a Roth versus traditional, or why you need a 401k today, like very basic, bland, boring content. It kind of pushed a couple people's buttons, not in a bad way. And I was not attacking anyone, but it was simply saying, why is that? Like, what is it that payroll companies are doing better than the rest of us? And on the flip side of that, everyone was kind of defensive. Well, they lose the most plans. So it's an interesting part of the industry that we kind of have a lot of things we want to voice about that. And you don't have to be that kind of person. And that's where I think people struggle, is like, well, what content should I put out? How do I do it? Well, I'm not that interesting. I don't know. And so they just repost other things, and it's got to be original content. But the point of that, think about, you've got to, same with like doing video, like people hate video. When you're putting content out, picture you're trying to tell somebody in your mind, whether a client, prospect, you're actually having a meeting with them and explain something to them, like something you learned that would be valuable to that person, and put it out in the world. Like, there's going to be people that are in that same boat, and you don't need to overthink the content. Some are not going to get through the algorithm, and maybe you tag too many hashtags and you tag too many people. There's little things like that we'll work on, but the long game has to be good quality information and in an engaging way. Right. That's the world that we live in, is we're all stuck at home with our phones. So this is the way that we can kind of debate different things. But
yes, that's exactly right. You just have to document this is where people get it wrong. They repurpose content outside. So if you have content on Facebook and Instagram, you can't use the same content on Facebook on LinkedIn. You have the same people looking at your content on two different platforms, and one may resonate with them and one doesn't, because we change and adapt our behaviors based on platforms. Important thing, you're familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, right?
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I got my jab, right hook right here.
All right, that's right. That's exactly right. So yeah, jab, right hook. And so what that means in that book is you're giving value, and then you're asking for.
You ask. That was the key. He always pushes hard on that. Ask. You don't try to take the business, you ask for it
Right.
after you provided value. And that's so easy to do. I mean, we've been given such an easy way from our phones laying in our beds to do that. Yet we just sit and scroll through and don't engage.
Yeah. So you have to
Crazy.
be able to connect with them, and it takes time. And Gary says this too, you can't have quality without quantity, because who determines whether your content is good on LinkedIn or not?
The the audience, the people viewing it. I mean,
Exactly
there's an
right.
algorithm, but yet there's been a lot of complaining lately about the algorithm changing.
It has.
And that should never matter. You should never be dependent on algorithm, whether it's SEO, whether it's social media, whatever. Like if you're putting more and more out, higher volume, and the quality gets better and better as you do it anyway,
Right.
naturally.
So here's something that people don't realize, and this is why your messages need to be about them, not you. When you engage with people in the messages, your content's they're going to see your content in their feed. Did you know that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Check
When
it
you
out. Yeah.
engage, yeah, you see more of
Yeah.
it.
So you'll see a direct correlation with the people that you're engaging with. If you're engaging with someone and you have content out, they're going to see your content. So if you engage with them and make it about you, they see your content. You're reaching out to all these different people through DMs every day. You're blowing a major opportunity, because you should be getting content out. Here's a direct message about them. Here's content giving them value. And so we have the 5 pillars to scale your business on LinkedIn. Those are just 2 of them. Your profile needs to be set up correctly. That's the foundational pillar. People need to go there and see your profile, and it solves their Monday problem. That's
Mhm.
Sunday evening, when Sunday becomes Monday. Every person that you work with, I work with, they start think about, and maybe the 401ks, that even goes deeper, because they think about that 3 a.m. or something. But if your profile does not solve their Sunday evening problem, it's not going to pass the 3-second rule. That's not dropping food on the ground and eating it. They go to your profile, they're intrigued, and so they continue to read. So you need to speak to them directly based on their problems. So when the DM goes to them, they go to your profile. Oh, they see your content, they go to your profile. Whoa. So that's important to have that set up. A lot of people don't have their profile set up. They go to their profile and there's mixed messages. People are doing various positions. And that's one of the huge mistakes. So make content transparent, authentic, know, like, trust. Be, like I share about being homeless. It's real. I share about being a former spammer. People can relate to that, because I think everyone has spammed someone sometime in their life. And when you do that, then you can connect with people on a deeper level and
Yeah.
just be you.
Right.
Here's the key. You being you will attract the right people into your life and the right clients into your business, but it doesn't happen overnight. You need to be consistent with that. You need to find your voice. Execution brings clarity. And so be consistent with your content, be consistent with your messages, and continue to build a skill set along the way, so that you build the ever increasing community who knows, likes, trusts you, and sees you as an authority.
Yeah. That's a big deal in the B2B world, because you should never show up to that when the opportunity does arise. If that's the moment they have to try and get to know you and it's a 1 hour meeting, you've missed a huge opportunity. Because if you show up to that meeting, they already know you, and they've got a few others in there they don't know. Well, you're that much farther ahead, because you were generating content and putting it out there and showing to them what kind of a person you are. You wouldn't be in that meeting if they didn't have some sense of what you could do for them. And so that's what we need to do more of, instead of just direct. And this is a perfect example. Like I see advisors do this all the time. They'll direct message an HR person or a CFO, someone they know, and or someone they know that is connected to them, and just go right for the sale. Right? Like, hey, I'm a 401k advisor. Can we take a look and benchmark your plan? I- like if I got that message and I'm an HR manager, I know nothing about you. Is that really going to resonate? Am I really going to respond to that? There's no way, right? So, what is it that maybe you need to think through? What would be valuable to them that you could give them without taking anything back or asking
Yeah,
for it yet?
that's right.
And that's part of the B2B world. And yes, relationships are very important. They're never. I don't think relationships will ever go completely away where people will still do their 401k with their brother-in-law and their neighbor and whatever, and that's still a very common practice
Right.
because there's relationships there. They know them, even though and then they start to screw up, or it's not their main focus, and there's opportunities that open up, and as the 401k grows, you need to be the expert there. And so LinkedIn is powerful. What other platforms? Let's talk about even outside of LinkedIn. What are you seeing? What are you recommending? Like you said, don't do the same content. I always recommend that
Right.
too.
Can I
What
get
would you
can I
focus
get
on?
kind of a little bit more tactical with strategies to help people based on what you're just saying?
Yes. Yeah, do
Okay.
it.
So I talked a little bit about this. Jake talked a little bit about this, and let me bring this home for everyone so they can understand. Jake was talking about basically establishing yourself as an authority or starting to in your mind because they see your content. It changes. People don't get this. Cold outreach, there's no relationship. Reaching out to someone, trying to sell them, if you get an appointment, there's no value to them and you're like everyone else. When you're building a community and you're seeing your content on a regular basis, you have your profile set up correctly, you have those featured posts there, those should be client recommendations talking about you. You could do some different things there, but there's big blocks of information. LinkedIn did that in the last year and a half.
Yeah.
You have your profile set up, solving their Sunday evening problem. Your messages are about them, their background. If Jake reached out to me, he just reached out. He didn't have any message. And so I figured if he's going to reach out to me without a message, so I just did an assumption. A lot of clients or a lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn based on my content. I'm curious, how did you come to, what brought you my way? I think I said,
Yeah.
and he said, oh yeah, it was definitely the content about the DMs. So right there, by me having a statement and a question with an assumption based on how people reach out to me, we engaged in a conversation. We met. We're having this meeting. I think we met, was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think it was a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Right.
It's gone fast.
And
But you
I'm
did even
doing
more
it.
than that. You sent a video as
Yeah, I
well.
sent a personal video message that went directly to my calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that there's a lot of little things within the process that make a huge difference. That people see your content, and this is why it's so important for people to know you, like you, trust you, and see you as an authority, and you to be yourself. I can't be Jake. Jake can't be me. You can't be either of us. You got to be yourself. A lot of people are uncomfortable with that because they don't know who they are, and they're so used to, within B2B sales is probably the worst. We're so fixated in this template and how we're supposed to sell, and the whole industry has been blown up and disrupted because we no longer sell the way that we were taught how to sell previously. Social media, the internet has changed all of that. So
Yeah.
people should have a good sense of who you are before they have that conversation. And when they do, you will distinguish yourself from everyone else. So any questions along that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's, I think, lines right up with having a personal brand and like really knowing that people are
Most
going to do
definitely.
business with you, not necessarily your firm. And that's why I think people kind of bounce around and struggle, because it's like, what's my identity? Is it me? Is it Jake? Or is it my firm, True North? Like, I don't do any stuff really much with True North. I don't promote that because they'll do business with me. I want to be the one that they know, like, and trust. And that might differ if you own the firm and it's your thing and you want to promote that. But I still think ultimately in the long run, the best, most valuable thing to your client would be your personal brand, because that's who they will remember. Right. And I think social media and online, the cold corporate voice is kind of dying off. And
Right.
no one wants to do business with that anymore. They want to know there's another person on the other side.
Well, do we buy from businesses or people?
Yeah, it's people. I mean,
That's exactly
there's
right.
a brand element to that. Sometimes you'll be very much in love and enjoy a certain brand because you know the quality and the value it brings to you. But that brand can resonate and connect into that person as well. Like if I need to go get something in the Apple store, like I'm going to get it at the Apple store, but I don't necessarily care who gets it for me there.
Right.
But when you're talking about a service business like this, and there's not a physical product, it's got to be you. You're
It's
the important
exactly
part of that.
right. Yeah, it's interesting because LinkedIn actually had a strategy and they got it wrong. They were really putting all this effort into their business pages, trying to get their business, promoting the business pages. And then people like myself, it's like people deal with people, and it's the personal page that makes the most difference because you connect with them. And so LinkedIn's finally like, oh, it's good to have a business page set up to your business if it's not your business, but it's the personal page where you connect with people.
Yeah.
So to your question about the other platforms, I'm not as active on other platforms like I like to be. I'm actually in the process of having a content day, and then where I'm going to distribute it through different platforms. But YouTube is a great long form platform. You know, I
Yeah, I
started to
agree.
build out there. LinkedIn, your videos 2 minutes or less. That's all they should be. Now, if you have a following, you can once in a while go a little bit longer. Top video, I mean, the longest video you can have on LinkedIn is 9 minutes. Facebook is, you know, I tweak around and mess around with Facebook sometimes. And I'll post my LinkedIn post on Facebook, and it's amazing. Miss LinkedIn is like, wow, you know, I'm getting, you know, thousands of views here, and my Facebook is getting like 90 views. Now, the algorithm on Facebook isn't as strong as LinkedIn. Even with the changes, it's still probably the best algorithm. And Jake and I are talking about this. If you don't know what I mean by the algorithm, it's just the people that you reach, the most people you reach, and it's affected by who watches your content, how long they watch your content, how long they're on your content. If you click see more, if you have a post, as opposed to not clicking see more, because people try to hack the content. If you
Yeah.
have people, and you can do this, and I encourage everyone to do this. If you have a post that goes out there, have people that are on your team. If you post a certain time each day, have people engage on that post. That will help give it a boost so you can get it out there, because there is a lot of traffic on LinkedIn. And people do pods where it's like great pod, and you have, you know, automation from online from India. Do not do that stuff. That will like mess up your content. But
Yeah.
if you have a core group of people in your business and you work together strategically to engage on your content, that's going to give you a little boost, and it will increase the views on your content, you know, 200 to 400%.
Yeah, and that's the goal, is you're trying to get more attention on what you're doing, how you're
Right.
changing and helping clients. And you have to know the intention of the platform. So LinkedIn, for example, what's the intention? They want to keep people on there as long as they
Exactly
possibly
right.
can, and we'll continue to see more and more ads start to stream. And I don't see a ton, but there definitely is a few in there. And I think LinkedIn does a good job of making them appropriate. And that'll eventually will marketing ruins everything. So right now they just want to keep your attention so they can sell more ads and get more marketing dollars. It's the same
Right.
with investing and the news. They don't necessarily focus on all the good stuff. They focus on the bad because it gets more higher numbers watching the show so they can sell more marketing dollars. Marketing drives the world in a lot of different areas. And I think that
Sure does.
we keep that intention in our head, knowing what is the reason. If you want something to be seen by a lot of people, then you got to make sure it's engaging. And if you have that in your mind, you'll be more successful. But that doesn't necessarily, having a huge, massive number that of people interacting or looking at it doesn't necessarily lead to anything. That's important to think through too. Like, go deeper into the relationships you want. Could be fine. It doesn't need to be thousands of people. It could be a few hundred. If it's the right 100 people, who cares?
Yep.
So
Well, you bring up a good point. 97, 98, 99% of people on content are lurkers. They lurk and they don't engage.
yep.
And I'll find, and I tell my clients, typically it's like 2 to 3 months before you're getting content out, you're being consistent, and then people will reach out to you. And a lot of people that reach out to me, they haven't engaged on my content. So if someone engages on your content, make sure that okay, so you have your post up here. People don't realize this. You have your post, and then you have people engaging on your content. And with my clients, I see people are starting to engage on their content and they're not responding. You have your content up here and you have your content below. I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk is really good about this. He had a post last week or something like that. It's like, bring some value below, ask your questions or give your advice.
Mhm.
So you could set up a post with asking questions, responding, and whatnot. So how you respond to people when they're actually taking time to respond to your content, there are those 98% of people who are lurking. who are looking at you and how you respond to other people, that they're going to formulate an idea in your mind, and it's going to formulate something positive or negative. They're going to see you as an authority, or they're not. They're going to start to know you. They're going to start to like you and trust you, or they're going to start to distrust you. So content is important. Below the content in the comments is just as important, if not more important.
Right. Very true. And as you mentioned, lurkers, I know we have a lot of people that listen to this and watch this that are in the 4K industry that are representing products or record keepers, TPAs. They're relying on advisors to be their distribution. We're the front lines out there bringing the clients, and they have the product that we utilize for that client. And most of the times in the classic method is they come to lunch, they take us to breakfast, they do a webinar, whatever. And their compliance team has just said, no, you can't do anything on social media. You can't engage, but they're spending time just lurking, right?
Right.
I'm starting to see it turn where I've seen one record keeper, one wholesaler posting videos. They're scripted and they're going for a sell. I mean, they're completely wrong and have nowhere but improvements to make. But the point of it is, I want to get your thoughts on what should these people try to do? Like, I know they got to deal with compliance, but what would be your thoughts of how do you get out of that lurking mindset, and how can we help them?
So lurking, as far as the people that you work with, your members, or they're having content and they're having other people that are lurkers.
So they're just lurking. They don't put any content out. Maybe they'll share an approved news article from their company.
So they're the lurkers.
They're the lurkers.
Okay, so this is perfect. Okay, so there's a book I have. It's right here on my desk. It's actually under my computer holding this up. Evolutionary Psychology. And it's about human behavior. It's reaching people based on their motivators and behaviors. And when you incorporate emotional intelligence, you can use those as triggers. Take, like, for instance, psychographic search, not psycho search, psychographic search. Most people don't even know what a psychographic search is. People think sales navigator, they connect with people based on their role, company, industry, size of company, and whatnot. So here's what all of your people can do. You can be a lurker and use emotional intelligence to connect with them on their level. And this is how you do it. So Ray Dalio, did I pronounce his name correctly?
Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
So I would imagine some of your people may actually be commenting on his content below there, right? Decision makers. I can go to Gary Vaynerchuk, and I know my target market is below his content commenting. So this is what your lurkers, and I know that you asked in a different context, but I just want to bring this home.
Sure.
I went down to his content. And I just did this for I don't have to do this to schedule meetings because I have a plethora of it, because I have these 5 pillars that are constantly bringing in new qualified prospective clients. Target market, decision makers see me as an authority, told me about a problem they have. But when I went to his comments, and this happened, it happened in 60 seconds. I saw this guy, David. Gary was talking about LinkedIn, the great algorithm. This guy below, a single sentence. What's the use? No one reads the content anyway. So that guy is in some serious pain, right?
Right.
So think about this. He's already he was a CEO of a small business, 1 to 10. Those are typically the companies I work with. He was communicating a problem he had. So emotional intelligence, he's already told me what his problem is. I was connected with him, but if I wasn't connected with him, I would send him a connection message. I saw your comment on Gary Vaynerchuk's post about the LinkedIn algorithm. I hope to connect with you. That's it. Not I hope to connect the network or your profile, like you said earlier, when it's just a bunch of BS, you know.
You're engaging with them based on what they did, right? That's the key.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I reached out to him and I said, I saw your message on Gary Vaynerchuk, and I quoted him. I used his words because that's going to reach him at a psychological level, because those are his words that he put. And there's probably some pain. What's the use? No one reads content anyway. And I looked at his content and there was no one looking at his content. Guess what his content was about?
It's probably just reposting old
It was
articles or
stock
something.
photos. He had a bunch of people yelling on the phone like this. It was like, and basically, reach out to me and call this. It was just out of 5 posts that he posted in a couple days, he had 1 like. So I
Yeah.
said, this is it. This is all you have to do. I said, I saw your comment on here about this. This is your comment. And I said, this is something I may be able to help with. Would you be interested in scheduling a brief call, just 20 minutes? I'm not here to pitch you or sell you. Learn more about your business. If I think I can help, and if you're interested, we can schedule another meeting. Worst case, we can look for ways to network or collaborate. Now, I made it a lot more succinct. You want to make this. And so he commented, we went back and forth. I scheduled a meeting within 15 minutes, 3 messages back and forth. And then after the meeting, I schedule what I call a breakthrough strategy session. That's how quickly it can happen for your lurkers that are going. I take people through a whole psychographic search so they can go to the influencers. It doesn't have to be someone with 4.5 million followers like Gary Vaynerchuk, or Ray, I think, has millions of followers too.
Sure. Yeah.
When you go to their content or they're commenting on these influencers' content, it gives you a permission to reach out to them based on their comment. And that's when you connect with them based on their motivators, their behaviors. They'll engage. That's the first objective. The second objective is to drill down to uncover a need. Now, they usually will already tell you the need because they commented on it. The next objective to drill down if you don't have it, and then to schedule the meeting. The next problem that or mistake people make is they're boom, 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 boom. You got to get them off social media and onto a phone call or a Zoom call. A brief intro call, and I take people through the 4 components of how to have an intro call without selling them, to qualify them, and then you set them up for your next conversation, discovery call, whatever you have. What kind of process do you take people through?
Yeah. I think everybody always has a concern with compliance. That's always seems to be the number one thing that I get with social media. And so, in that example, if you see someone commenting and you want to engage with them and you can't do it, I've even had wholesalers that can't even make comments in a DM. They can't even use DM. In that sense, you can go to someone's profile and see what they're doing, get some ideas, try to engage with them through an email. I mean, send them an email, try to shoot them a text if they have their number showing, if you're connected with them. But you got to be creative, and you have to follow the pattern of, you got to hook them, and you got to give them a story, and you got to give them an offer, like something that will help them, not help you. And so for me,
you
I'm
help
all
them and it will help you.
right. Right. If you're helping them and the value is there, then it's going to happen. So with me, I kind of have 2 focuses, right? I'm trying to look for clients. And so with the physician space, I help a lot of physicians with 401ks. I get connected to them through various referrals through other physicians and other accountants and things.
Right.
And it's because I put out a lot of content about how to help them with tax strategy, and it gets down to crunch time and they're like, I'm sick of paying taxes. What can I do? And then we just look at what's going on and actually give them real information. And when I'm trying to get connected with advisors, I mean, it's all over the map, but usually I can take a quick look at what they're doing. And I said, look, like what, like, tell me a little bit about practice. Like, how are you winning business? How are you getting more engagement? Like what's happening? What do you fill your day with? Right. Cause if you're not slammed, like I'm working, I feel like 15 to 18 hours a day right now, because I'm just trying to get all these deals done and manage the club and put out content. It's
Right.
not easy. If you think putting out content is easy, then you're completely wrong. It is hard,
Mm-hmm.
but the rewards are going to be much greater. And I think it will grow and grow, and you'll be really happy you did it, but you have to start. So it's kind of all over the place. I would say you get connected with one great person, you do some good things for them, they start to connect you to other people. It just kind of grows on itself. And there's no quick, easy fix.
Let me
Once you
ask you
have
a
it out of
question,
your
because
head, you're good.
you mentioned this compliance thing several times, and I know we talked about it too. How much of that is a crutch, and how much of it, let's just take out of like 100 people work for 100 companies, what's the percentage of those that it's actually, I can't send someone a message, it's compliance. Now you have compliance within the company, and then you have compliance within the real compliance.
Yeah.
What's the actual compliance problem within the company with someone sending a direct message based on a comment they made?
it's definitely the company level. So the different regulations, they're always behind. Like the actual government, the
Yeah.
SEC and FINRA, they're always behind the time. So they're trying to get better with that, and it's harder if you're with a broker dealer versus just an investment advisor, and it's at the firm level. And the real reason that it exists is because if the bigger the firm, the more that one or two or compliance team has to manage. So instead of actually trying to manage it in a way that would enhance the sales and growth of the firm, they manage it their risk for themselves personally by just closing the door and saying no to everybody. And the only way you're going to open that door up is if you push them and you get on the radar because you put something out there. Obviously, you know what you can and can't. You should know what you can and can't say. You can't recommend to buy a stock or sell something or, get into those kind of recommendations. But you can definitely teach and share with things, anything you normally do in a meeting, right? Like I don't see why that would be a bad thing for you to put out. And if the door is just closed, you can't do anything. The only way you're gonna get their attention is you got to start.
Well, that's what I was saying, because I live kind of, it's a little changed now, but especially when I was younger, ask for forgiveness instead of permission. So if someone is like on Ray's content, Delia, and then you send them a direct message, I saw your comment on there and you're engaging with them based on their comment, does that break some type of
That
compliance?
that should be fine, but I've literally had people that it wasn't. Where I even asked one wholesaler one time to connect me to the wholesaler in my area because he'd moved to a different area, and he had to email me separately or text me or hit me on Facebook or something because he couldn't do it on LinkedIn because that was monitored by compliance.
Yeah. I
It's
don't know. I
insane,
just know
right?
I would work for a different company. I would definitely
Yes.
push the envelope on that, because I know if you're bringing in new clients, people are like, oh, and look what I'm saying. Yeah, this falls within our compliance. I definitely would push the, because you have to be able to reach people based on their motivators and behavior, and has nothing to do with saying stuff that falls out of compliance. I'm not a compliance guy, okay? But I just know a lot of times people will say, well, it's compliance, and it's a lazy way out. If you
You're right.
want to reach people based on where they are, you can go to their profile instead of saying, hey, I saw something on your profile, this being bogus. And if you connect with someone, I see you're a founder and you're also working here. Sounds like you're one busy guy. Where do you spend most of your time? Then they engage with you. Then you can drill down. You have that skill set, and then you can uncover a need to schedule a call.
Right. And there's a balance there because I think if you saw their comment somewhere and you can ask them about that, that's a little less creepy than, hey, I saw you doing this, like looking at your profile. So you've got to think, put yourself in their shoes. What would be appealing enough to you that would catch your attention? And you did that well with me because I mean I'm getting hit all the time, and you were just like, what was it? How did you find me? That's
Yeah.
a simple question. If someone finds you or like, just be real. Stop trying to put this LinkedIn face up and then you're a real person over here. Like just be you and
Yeah.
own it. However it
Yeah.
is. Don't try to be someone else.
From
And then,
psychology, a lot of times you have spam, then you have other people that are doing open-ended questions. So from psychology, it's a statement and a question that elicits a response. Just a question doesn't. So if you make an assumptive statement, like if you go to someone's Facebook profile, and I don't find people that are creeped out by saying something about you. They actually, it distinguish yourself from everyone else if you actually went to their profile and say, I've never had my clients make an assumptive statement based on information they got from their profile. People are like, oh man, I can't believe you. Are you a stalker? It elicits a response, and you know the type of response it is, Jake. It's not just like a thanks. It's like when you reach this is the way you reach people and build rapport instantaneously with direct messaging, and people don't realize they could do that. Now, it's not rapport like a voice conversation or in person, but you still can build rapport when you use information about their motivators, their behaviors, and their background and experience, and you make an assumption based on your experience and ask a question. So statement, question.
yeah,
Statement, question.
without a leading
Listen,
question. It's not a
huh?
leading question trying to get to a sale. It's an actual curious question
Yeah.
to find out more about them. And that's a big difference there.
Exactly right. I mean, if I was reaching out to you, I'm not even looking at your profile right now, but I can see, you have two companies, and I can say, I see you're working at this with members and this other one. That's, you seem like a busy guy. You are a busy guy. I'm making an assumption. Where do you spend most of your time? And then you say, you would probably respond with a longer statement if I just asked you an open-ended question that had nothing to do specifically with what you're doing. If I was trying to lead you to saying you had a need, so I can try to
Yeah.
take you into a conversation.
And that question got me thinking, even when you asked it, like, where do I spend my most time? And it makes you think, you know what? I probably need to reassess that more often and actually make sure I'm spending it in the right places. And that's the same of anybody you want to help. We're all trying to manage our time better. And so if you can engage with someone and get them to really think about, wow, you could actually save me time. It's not always about money, but time's a huge factor too. And there's so much good in the world. And I got that real feeling from you really fast. And who knows if you'll
Thanks.
coach me one day. I don't know, but like, I'm having fun getting to know you now. And I think there's some definite
Here we
like
are.
ideas that you share that I haven't heard other places that have been really powerful. So I've taken good notes. So yeah, a lot to do. And LinkedIn is really important right now, especially in our industry. And don't miss that opportunity. And
Here's,
there'll be more opportunities, but this is right now. This is the big one.
yeah. So let me just close off here with just an idea, because I talked about intention, the intention to serve.
Yes.
When I tell my clients, one of three things can happen. You could potentially help them as a client, you could potentially network, or you could collaborate. One of the coolest things, and Jake and I are collaborating, we're networking. And so collaborating, you can do an interview of somebody that you connect with. 5 minutes, 3 questions. You interview them, share the interview with your audience. They interview you, 5 minutes, 3 questions, and share it with their audience. That's a way. And if you're talking to someone like that, they're going to trust you and you're going to reach more people. So if you always go in and not always trying to sell, but think, oh, well, they're not a potential client, but I could always network with them or collaborate with them. And so that takes the pressure off. And then it will usually lead to something good if you go with that right intention, as opposed to trying to force a square peg into a round hole.
Yes, that's really good advice. Okay, Chaz, we've taken a lot of time. I appreciate you.
I appreciate this awesome conversation, man.
We're going to do more of this. We've got you scheduled in January for those of you in the club. You're going to get even more tactical and actually really drill into some things that people can go and take action on right now. So we'll get everyone prepared for that. That's January 15th, I think Friday at 11 o'clock Mountain. So look forward to that, Chaz. Appreciate you. And I'll get this posted today.
Go rock this day. Boom.
Let's do it.